If you don't take action, that's the pattern you reinforce. If you do, that's the pattern you reinforce. Which pattern do you want to reinforce? We have choice. So you are at choice. And you can choose to be victorious or you can choose to be a victim. Your choice.
If somebody were to come up to you saying, I feel stuck in life, things aren't bad, but I know they can be better. How do I begin to transition and up level?
It's a great question. The first question I would ask them is, what do you believe is causing your stuck state? Right? So if you think about, a car, right? If a car is in drive, you can drive the car and shift left, right, go in reverse. But if a car is in park, that's because you're in park. So the question is, what's causing you to be in a stuck state? And the answers are going to be, either something to do with my mindset, something to do with fear, something to do with uncertainty or doubt. And so whenever we're looking at any state of mind or being, states are effects. So the question is, effect of what? So we need to dive beneath the surface to get a greater perspective of what's causing the effect. And as we all know, there's positive, constructive effects that we like and want more of. And then there may be a destructive, negative effects that we don't like. If we live at the level of effects, then we keep repeating those effects because we're looking at effects which perpetuate more of the same effects. But if we're looking at playing the game of life or health at the level of cause, at cause we can change. At effect, okay, we're usually repeating patterns. So that's where I would begin.
You named a few different causes there, and obviously, again, it's going to be different depending on the person and what they're struggling with. But let's get into some of the nuances there, starting with mindset. So if somebody's feeling like, they just don't have the right mindset, A, how would they go about identifying that? And then B, how do they begin to work on that?
So questions, if we step back for just a moment and we understand what we're dealing with, right? Every human being owns something that is worth about 100 billion or more dollars. Zero mortgage, zero payment plan. It's called their brain. And their brain is the most sophisticated biocomputer in the known universe. And this biocomputer of ours functionally works the exact same way. So the question then that I love to ask is, how well do you know how to use your biocomputer? Most people are like, what do you mean? So you have a brain. How well do you know how to use your brain? And most people are at a total loss. And so what if I shared with you that, one of the things that you want to really start to discover, it has to do with the questions that you ask yourself. The questions you ask yourself set up your focus. The things that you focus on create where your attention goes. Where your attention goes releases, neurochemicals that causes you to either be motivated or be in a state of fear. So the power of our questions is a really great place to start using the biocomputer better. So for example, if somebody is stuck and they ask themselves, well, what could be the reasons that I'm stuck? And they took a sheet of paper and they just started to write it out or typed it out on their computer. I could be stuck because of this, because of trauma, because of fear, because of lack of knowledge, because of lack of skill, because, I don't know what to do, because, I'm not motivated. This is the beginning of getting the biocomputer to at least understand, what are the obstacles in our way. So let's say that we had, a fear of failure, or a fear of succeeding and then failing, or, I'm afraid of being embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed or judged or rejected. Let's say we came up with some of the common things that hold people back. And then we said, okay, now that I'm aware of this, what would have to happen for me to overcome this? And you say, I don't know. I say, okay, great. If you did know, what could a behavior be? What could be a next step to overcome this? I don't know. Great. Who could know? Who would know? I wonder what Google would say about this topic. Let me go research it on Google. So if we take a situation and we look at the situation and we think about the situation, we feel what we think about, and we think what we feel, we keep repeating, potentially a doom loop of either negativity or of repeating that same pattern over and over again. But if we observe the thing, and then we ask better questions that move us forward towards a solution, now we're using our biocomputer in a way that can help us the same way it helps people who imagine colonizing Mars. Because they're looking for solutions and they're looking for opportunities to solve problems, because there's many, as opposed to saying, here's the problem, holy shit, here's the problem, I don't know what to do, it's really hard, it's a big problem, and repeating that pattern over and over again. Versus saying, I understand there's a problem. Now, what would have to happen? Who could help me? What would I need to learn? Where would I go to look to solve this problem? So one opens up your brain's ability to solve the most complex of problems, and one actually reinforces the smallest of problems and magnifies them into blocks that don't allow us to move forward. The problem is rarely the cause of the problem. Right? So the problem is rarely the cause of the problem. So the problem is really not the problem. We have to go deeper and use some higher cortical functions called thinking, which most people, if they said what they were thinking, they would be speechless because they have thoughts, but they don't think about, why am I having these thoughts? How do I change these thoughts? Why am I achieving this or not achieving this? What could be in the way? Right? So what we want to do is understand that. Let me back up for just a moment. I'll ask a question for you and everybody else. In the areas of health, okay, let's stick with health. Let's say physical health, spiritual health, emotional health, mental health. Okay, in the 2022-2023 time frame, all right, humans have been walking on Earth for, in Homo sapiens, a couple 100,000 years. And the question we ask ourselves is, do we know how, for example, to lose weight and get into great shape if we were committed right now?
Yes.
Great. Do we know how to reduce stress and increase calmness if we were committed right now?
Yes.
Do we know how to increase concentration and focus and increase awareness if we were committed to learning how right now?
Yes. All the answers are out there. It's a matter of have we delved in and uncovered them.
Yeah. Is it possible to 5x your revenue this year if you're committed? Yes. Is it possible to augment your relationship or your spiritual connectedness? Yes. Is it possible to grow a business from scratch to $1 million this year? Yes. So if the answer is yes, 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 then why not you and why not now? And the answer as to why not you and why not now is because something is going on that's blocking you right now. And there's only 4 things that it could be. There's not 50 things. There's only 4 that it could be. So one is you may be lacking the knowledge and skill of how to. And in the absence of knowledge and skill, we trigger the self-doubt, uncertainty circuit in our brain, which deactivates the motivational circuit in the brain. So lack of knowledge and skills could be a problem that you need to overcome. 1. 2, you have limiting beliefs. I'm too young, I'm too old, the market's really bad right now, interest rates are high. Do you realize what's happening in the world economy right now? And you have beliefs that limit you. And when beliefs limit you, you're limited. 3, you really don't see yourself achieving the goals that you want because your subconscious identity is not aligned with the destiny you really want. So now we're dealing with self-image, which is a subconscious pattern. And then number 3, fear may be holding you back. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of being ridiculed, fear of being rejected, fear of being unloved, fear of succeeding and then failing, fear of trying your very best and not accomplishing your goal. So there's 50 different types of fear that could be holding you back, even though you may not know about it. So even though we know all of the how to right now, how to doesn't change the whether you will or whether you won't.
Well, let's move beyond the how-to then. Let's get into the belief piece. You mentioned beliefs and self-image. I believe both of these are to do with the subconscious.
Yeah, well,
So can we take time and pick into each of these and say somebody doesn't even understand, first of all, what are beliefs? And then how do we figure out what our current beliefs are?
So before we get into what are beliefs, another question should be, were you born with any? Was any baby, 107 billion humans have walked on planet Earth since the beginning of time. Not one was born with a belief. So the question is, what is a belief? And the answer is it's nothing more from a neuroscience perspective than a reinforced pattern of information that we received either from parents, teachers, siblings, friends, school, TV, books, that were reinforced and then became part of our subconscious pattern, which then causes us to behave and to perceive everything that's in alignment with those beliefs. So belief is nothing more than a reinforced pattern. And we have constructive beliefs, we have destructive beliefs, we have positive ones, we have negative ones, we have empowering ones, we have disempowering ones. So the question really should be, what disempowering beliefs do I have of why I can't achieve this goal? Well, I don't believe I can because, write it down. And then ask yourself a question, is this really true? Is this belief really true? Now, let me point something out just to make this even more clear. Did you ever believe in Santa Claus?
Yes.
Great. So how did you develop that belief?
I'm assuming teachers, parents.
Teachers, parents, television, culture, society created this image, right, that you believed at one point in your life was real. And some people still believe Santa Claus is real. I know that. That's all right. But at a certain point in your life, you had new evidence that said, okay, Santa Claus was created, to be part of, a culture, but children don't know the difference between something that's real or imagined. They don't know something that's fact from fiction. Some adults don't either, and don't even know how to look at fact from fiction, but that's another story. But what happens is, if we don't question what we believe, then the beliefs that were given to us or that were accepted by us become more and more and more reinforced. So let's change the paradigm a little bit to say, is it possible for me to believe something that I don't currently believe, but in believing it, it will drive my behavior differently? It'll drive my identity differently. It'll drive what I achieve. So let me say, why don't you set a goal that you don't know how to achieve, that you may not even believe you can achieve right now? Then ask yourself a question. What belief do I need to start believing that'll make the achievement of this goal more possible? So why not deliberately and consciously evolve yourself? Why not create a neural pattern, and then why not reinforce it so that it becomes a dominant pattern and overrides a dominant pattern that you have right now that may be limiting you. So I'll give you an example and a technique to use. Let's say you write down a limiting belief. Write down, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't have this, or I'm too young, or I'm too old. By just shifting that, once you know what it is, saying, in the past, I used to believe. Write down what you used to believe, but put it in the past, and say, now I'm choosing to believe, and write down what you want to believe. So now I'm choosing to believe that I have the knowledge, the skills, the capabilities, I deserve it, I'm more than worthy enough, I'm more than smart enough, I'm more than enough to achieve my goal of, write that down. And then repeat it 50 times a day for the next 100 days. Visualize it 5 minutes a day for the next 100 days. Emotionalize it for 3 minutes a day for the next 100 days. Now, why would we do that? Well, first and foremost, there's a term in the neuroscience world that I play in, that the neurons that fire together will wire together. So if I have an affirmation, let's say, and I have a visualization is a simulation. Whatever we repeat, we reinforce the patterns of. So if I repeat an affirmation with an emotion behind it that's positive and constructive, with activating my occipital lobe and the motivational center of my brain, which releases dopamine as I'm doing it, now, not only am I firing the neurons that I want to fire deliberately, but if I repeat it, I am reinforcing it. If I'm reinforcing it, because my brain wants to conserve energy, it overrides the old software and it allows the new software to create the new reality, which now changes my perception, which now changes my emotions, which now activates the motivational center of my brain, which means I'm going to start behaving differently. And I'm going to start setting up the expectations around the new belief if I reinforce it. And just to give you an idea of how it works, imagine a Hollywood actor getting a new script that he or she has never seen before. What do they do to become that script?
They immerse themselves.
They immerse themselves in something that somebody else wrote. They've never seen it. They didn't even write it. They're acting the role until they become the role, and they could recite the role and be the part as if they are the role, because they develop the neural patterns and reinforce them through deliberate practice and spaced repetition.
One thing I want to highlight here before we move on is the fact that when we do this exercise and we ingrain that new belief in our subconscious, the subconscious is primarily controlling the show. So when that's in there, it's not like you have to necessarily, you won't be thinking about acting differently and bringing these positive changes into your life, because it'll be on autopilot.
Well, it becomes autopilot after you've developed the subconscious pattern. But the way we develop subconscious patterns is through conscious effort first, right? So we first have to apply conscious effort. We have to be consciously competent. And at a certain point, we go from being consciously competent to unconsciously competent. Now, there's a problem with this equation. We could be competent at the wrong things, right? So we could be reinforcing the very patterns that we don't want if we don't practice doing it right, if we don't practice the right patterns. So our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something that's good for us or bad for us. All it knows is anything that we repeat, positive, negative, constructive, destructive, it reinforces, and then the habit is created, whether it's a thought, emotional, or behavioral habit. But that also sets up the lens by which our brain sees the world and sets up the expectations of the results that you're going to achieve.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. That's what I meant, but you got into the specifics. You need to reinforce that, get it into the subconscious over a period of time, and then it becomes autopilot. What I want to do, John, before we move forward is make sure people understand, because this is grassroots for doing this exercise. figuring out what beliefs are and aren't serving them. You talked about a bunch of different beliefs that might not be serving people, but say somebody is feeling stuck right now and they've been in that rut for a period of time. It's like, okay, I can see this isn't working, but how do they go through and analyze exactly the beliefs that aren't serving them? At least the ones to start with.
Sure. Yeah, well, the first thing to do is just ask yourself, and like I always have, pads of paper, and I have a pen. I always have pads of paper, and I ask questions. What might be in my way right now? Write it down, write it down, write it down. Why is it there? Write it down, write it down, write it down. What would I need to do to remove it? I don't know, or I do know. Where can I go to find the answer? So I'm in a state of question and curiosity all the time. Why? Because curiosity actually activates something called the neuroplasticity switch, and your brain's switch to create new patterns. And the other thing that's really important for people to know is, I know a lot of people have heard of, flow states. How do you get yourself into these flow states where it's effortless? And what most people don't know is flow states actually get started out of usually unfocused, chaotic states of stress, stuckness, fear, and uncertainty. And it's in that state, right, that you can activate the adrenaline that's required to heighten focus and awareness. So don't think of a flow state as only, you calm and, meditating and oming to the success that you want. A stuck state could actually be the catalyst required to catapult you to the next stage of your capabilities and results. So when you're in a stuck state or you're not achieving your goals, shift the stuckness into a curious state. So the state of curiosity actually activates focus, awareness, and attention. The state of curiosity has you moving forward to find solutions as opposed to the repetitiveness of stuck states, which activate, what I call our self-perpetuating doom loops. So how do you do that? Understand there's nothing wrong with a stuck or plateau state. There's nothing wrong with it. Our brain naturally goes, into plateaus and repeating patterns. Now, some of the patterns just will not help you achieve your goals. So you need to first you need to be aware of the pattern, then you need to interrupt the pattern and start a new one. And so the way you do that is get curious. Like I said, if all the answers that we need are here right now, then my job is to ask great questions or to find people that can give me the answers. And this is, the beginning of really what I call is innercising, right? I don't know, since the last time we spoke, it was November of 2019. I wrote a book, you see it back there. It's called Innercise, the new science to unlock your brain's hidden power. And anytime that we are challenging our brain, if you think about why do we exercise? Well, to strengthen whether it's our biceps or our chest or our glutes or our legs, we exercise to do, to strengthen our muscles. Well, by challenging our brain, we're innercising. We're challenging our core neural muscles. And so let's challenge assumptions. Let's challenge beliefs. Let's challenge habits. Let's challenge, the stuff that's holding us back. And let's challenge ourselves to use our brain in a way that can help us get into a state of peak performance, whether it's for health or wealth or relationships, it doesn't matter. A state of mind activates an emotional state. An emotional state determines whether you take action or you don't. So if you're in an emotional state of whining, bitching, complaining, feeling sorry for yourself, focusing on the problem, you're going to repeat that pattern, and chances are you will be stuck in that pattern. What if you, instead of got stuck in the pattern, just became aware of the pattern and then saying, what has to happen in order for me to interrupt the pattern and start a new pattern? I'll give you an example since we're talking about health. Let me see if I can actually show you the example, because every day, here we go. So every day, one of my clients sends me a text. And he's a client I've had for a couple of years right now. And the text that he sends me is the one right over there that says, day 146. 50 push-ups, day 149, a few days later, 50 push-ups, 1 minute plank. Day 157, 2 minute plank, 75 push-ups. Now, why is he sending me these little texts? And because 150 days ago or so, he was out of shape. He wasn't working out, even though he wanted to. And he just kept saying, I'm out of shape, not working out. I want to work out. I'm out of shape, not working out, etc. I said, stop. I've heard this now, for multiple sessions that we've had. So let's not focus on your business, which is what I was helping with. I said, get on the floor right now. I said, what? Like, get on the floor right now. And I took my laptop, which I'm on right now, and I pointed to my floor. I said, let's do 10 push-ups together. I did 10, he did 10. I said, great, let's do a 1 minute plank. I did a 1 minute plank. He did a 1 minute plank. 150 days later, he's doing between 50 to 100 push-ups a day, a minute to 2 minute plank, and jumping jacks, etc., just because he got off of that pattern. And now he's going to the gym, and now he's doing all the stuff that he wants to do because he was stuck. But all we did is we reduced it down to the ridiculous to create a new pattern.
Where I could see this becoming a challenge for somebody who realizes they're stuck and, is in a real jam, I could see how that would be a catalyst to make change and figure out a different solution. But what about the person who has mediocre beliefs and they're living a quote unquote mediocre life, but they could be doing a lot better, but they don't have that kick in the butt to figure out how they could change those beliefs? I could see how, a lot of people listening might be in that position where life is pretty good, but they might not have that urgency to act.
Great, then be stuck. Period. Listen, let's call it as it is, okay? The word motivation comes from motive for action. So if you don't have a real reason why you must, you won't. Period. You're going to lack the motive for action. So you are going to do what our brain naturally does, and that is stay in your comfort zone. So let me take you somewhere else for just a moment. Many years ago, literally 41, I was 19, and my first mentor asked me, what do I want to achieve in my life? I said, I don't know. I'd like to have a car. I'd like to get my own apartment. I'd like to get a job that, pays me more than $1.65 that I was earning per hour. And he says, great. What else do you want to achieve? I said, there's nothing else I want to achieve. And he gave me a sheet of paper. And on the sheet of paper, the first question was, at what age do you want to retire? I was 19. Retire? My father's not even retired. I said, just write down something. I wrote down 45. Second question, how much net worth do you want to have upon retirement? I said, what does net worth mean? I had no idea. He said, well, if you have your assets and you have debt, you subtract the debt from the assets, that means how much you're really worth that you can sell in the marketplace and have cash. Okay, $3 million. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? What kind of health do you want to have? Who do you want to help? Where do you want to go? What kind of car do you want to drive? What kind of home do you want? And I just wrote all this stuff down, made it all up. He looked at it and he went through it and he says, these look like some really good goals. I'm going to ask you one question, and the answer to the question will determine whether you achieve all of these things. And so I'm thinking to myself, really? Like one question? And he looks at me and he says, are you interested in achieving these things, or are you committed to achieving them? I go, what? He said, are you interested or are you committed? And I said, what's the difference? He said, if you're interested, you come up with reasons, stories, and excuses why you won't or why you can't. But if you're committed, you'll do whatever it takes. He says, people who are committed change their identity to match their destiny. People who are committed change their beliefs and habits to match their destiny. People who are committed, do whatever it takes. People that are interested do not, and they do not achieve their goals and dreams. So listen, you asked me, for the person who really doesn't have the motivation, they're screwed. I mean, that's just the raw truth. And if you're okay achieving the results you're achieving right now in your life, and you're okay with that being your life, great. But if you're not, then you're either going to pay, as Jim Rohn said, the price of discipline, or you're going to pay the price of regret. And he said, discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. So if you have goals and dreams that you're not committed to achieving, just let them go and stop dreaming about them, because hope and prayer are not good strategies. And get off of the drug of choice called hopium. Right? So listen, the achievement of goals is reserved for people who are serious and committed. And then the rest of the people, life happens to them. So I much prefer to show people how to achieve every goal that they want to achieve by getting their mindset right, getting their skill set right, and getting their behaviors right. Because that's the formula required to achieve goals, which is very, very different than the formula for setting goals. Everybody sets goals. Very few people achieve their health and wealth and relationship and business and career goals. Not because they can't, because they don't know how to use their brain in a way that'll create the motivation. They don't know how to overcome the obstacles that are easily overcomable if you are committed.
Okay, let's dig into this further. Say somebody right now is tuning in. They say, I am committed. I have goals, but right now I'm just setting goals. How do I take it from setting goals to goal achievement?
Let's start with the understanding that the way that our brain releases dopamine, or the reward neurochemical, which anticipates a behavior that will help you achieve your goal, but also anticipates the achievement of the goal. So you start off by creating a vision for some time in the future, whether it's a year or 2 or 3, of your life being exactly the way you want it. So if you could just eliminate any obstacles, eliminate any self-doubt, eliminate any uncertainty or fear, and you have a canvas, okay, that you can just put anything you want on it, what would you love your life to look like and be like a year or 3 from now, or 5 from now? Let's start somewhere in the future. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. Great. Dream. Create a fantasy. Dream. Then let's say you set a goal, or a vision for a year from now. Where would you like to be 9 months from now? Where would you like to be 6 months from now, 3 months from now, a month from now? And then in order to get going, what would you need to believe in order to make the goals for a year from now a reality? Would you need to believe that you're smart enough? Great. Write it down. Would you need to believe that you're worthy enough? Great. Write it down. I am more than worthy enough to achieve the vision that I set for my life a year from now. Would you need to believe that you have the knowledge and skills? Great. Write it down. Right? I am fully skilled, or I can learn everything I need to learn and develop every skill I need to develop to achieve the vision and goals I have a year from now. Write it down. Then I'm going to ask you, once you write down those beliefs, what do you think you should be doing today and this week to move you towards that? We don't have to have all the path, but what do you think you could be doing today? Just a few small things, just to get going. Right? Listen, if we want to travel 1,000 miles from here to a destination, we don't have to have the entire map laid out. We just need to go 1 mile. We can go 1 mile and say, hey, everyone, like I live in San Diego, so I'm on my way to New York. I know that it's east of San Diego. Which direction should I go? Just go 1 mile at a time. 1 mile at a time, you can get there. So you don't have to have the entire map laid out. But what we want to do is get going, right? What's Newton's law of motion? Right? An object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. So get going. What do you need? What can you do today? You want to get in great shape? Great. What can you do for the next 3 minutes? You want to be healthier mentally? Great. What can you do to be more positive for the next 1 minute? Okay. What can you be grateful for right now to activate the emotion of gratitude, which activates your dopamine reward center in your brain? That's connected to the motivational center, that's connected to the behavioral center in your, like, what can you do right now? So we can still have a vision for a year from now or 3 or 5, but if we come back to how I need to behave today and this week and next week and the week after, and just get going, I'm making progress now. And if I'm making progress, I'm building self-trust. If I'm making progress, I'm building more confidence. If I'm building more confidence, I'm gaining more certainty that maybe that's a possibility. And once I have certainties around possibilities, how do I turn them into probabilities? Right? So we want to reduce it to the ridiculously small so we can start taking action, no matter how small. If you don't take action, that's the pattern you reinforce. If you do, that's the pattern you reinforce. Which pattern do you want to reinforce?
And I can see even on a micro level, if you try and take on too much within the day, even if you get half of that complete, and I find myself guilty of doing this from time to time as well, where I have this big to-do list for the day and maybe get through half of it. And I find on those days when I get to the end of the day, even though I've accomplished so much, because I didn't get to that other half of the list, it just doesn't leave you mentally feeling very accomplished.
Well, unless at the end of the day, you practice gratitude for all the stuff that you did get done.
So there's that way of doing it, or making the list smaller.
You can make the list smaller, or you can say, hey, because I am so aggressive in achieving my goals, I always set goals for more than I can do, and I push myself, as much as I can, and then I keep going. So you look at it, it's kind of like the glass half full or glass empty type of thing. How do you reinforce the positivity around the pattern of what you did get done, and just let go of the fact that you maybe didn't get 50% of it done? I got 50% done. I've just made progress towards my goals and dreams. So celebrate the small wins, celebrate the progress, because here's what you will discover. Very few people celebrate the end destination enough. It's kind of like, yeah, I achieved it. Great. What's next? So if you celebrate along the way, I got this done, I got that done, I got this done, I helped that person, I did this, I did that, I overcame this, I moved forward, I discovered this, I learned this, just keep reinforcing all of the positivity of the progress momentum, the progressive momentum. And that's, again, a mindset. And people who like to achieve goals, there's always more goals. People climb the biggest mountains in the world, right? Only say, well, what's the next mountain? Or could I climb 2 in a week? So we keep setting goals that we want to achieve, especially if we are goal achievers. But if you want to become a goal achiever, start off with achieving small goals.
And to break that down, say somebody has that year goal and they're working on the short-term stuff. How do they go about dividing their time between working on the skills to become the person they need to be in a year to accomplish that goal versus the day-to-day stuff to keep, say, the current business or the current cash flow coming in?
Yeah, so first and foremost, there's no such thing as time management. So the only thing that we can get good at is managing what we do in a block of time. So one of the things I learned, again, 40 years ago or so, 39 years ago, was the value of 1 hour a day. Think about this: 1 hour a day, every day, times 365 days is 365 hours. That's 9 40-hour weeks. 9 40-hour weeks. Let's say you and I were to commit to learning a brand new language that was difficult. Could we make significant progress if we learned it for 9 40-hour weeks.
Yes.
If we said, screw the language, we want to get better at solving the Rubik's Cube, could we get better if we practice for 9 40-hour weeks?
For sure.
If we want to get better at chess or at checkers or at the yo-yo or at knitting, could we get better in 9 40-hour weeks?
Yeah, it's a lot of time. You could get better at anything.
Great. So you know what? Commit 30 minutes a day. Forget the hour, 30 minutes a day getting better at your craft every day. You will become an expert in 5 to 10 years.
And when it comes to people achieving their goals, what do you see as being the biggest challenge that people face? Is it just that they're setting goals and not having that small increment plan and then the long-term plan? Or because we all do set goals and we all do want to accomplish, at least most of us want to accomplish big things. So what would you say is holding people back in the greatest capacity?
Well, there's a couple of things. 99, maybe 98 out of 100 people that I come across and they tell me their goals. I say, that's awesome. Are you serious in achieving them? Yeah. Show me your plan. I don't have any plans. Oh, I've got it in here. Okay, great. Write it down in detail. Show me your goal. Show me the strategies. Show me the tactics. Show me the timelines. Show me the tools and resources that you need in order to achieve the goal to make it predictable versus possible. 98 out of 100 do not have well laid out plans. Not for the day, not for the week, not for the month, not for the quarter, not for the year. So in essence, they have goals and they hope and pray they come together. So their core strategy is hope and prayer. And so if you have a vision and you have goals, then you have to have, how are you going to achieve those goals? So what has to happen by when needs to be part of the plan. For our brain to help us achieve our goals, we need what we want to achieve. Okay, activates left prefrontal cortex. What I call is, if you'll see over there, the Einstein part of the brain. All right, I also have Frankenstein's monster up there, right? So what we want to have is what? Specifically, what do I want to achieve? What we also need to have is, why must I achieve it? Limbic part of the brain, the mid part of the brain, the emotional center of the brain that drives a lot of our behavior. So why must I achieve it? Not why should I, why could I, why do I want to? Why must I? The must gives us leverage. Because if you don't have a must or a why that's bigger than your fears or doubts or uncertainties, they will win. But if your why is bigger than the doubts, fears, and anxieties and stress, then it will win. So what, why? When are you going to achieve some of the goals? So what, why, when? How specifically? Give me the how specifically. So now I have what, why, when, and how. 4 different parts of the brain are involved, which reduces stress, reduces tension, increases certainty, increases confidence that there's a path towards the end goal that we want. Now all we have to do is manage emotions.
Let's come back to that why piece. You talked about why has to be bigger than the fear or the insecurities. Other than having that bigger why, let's talk about fear and insecurities and different tools we can use or ways we can upgrade our mind to handle those.
Give me a goal. Let's have some fun. Give me a goal that you want to achieve that you haven't achieved yet.
To be able to do 20 pull-ups a year from now.
Okay. And so why haven't you achieved it?
I just haven't dedicated the time.
And why haven't you dedicated the time?
It just hasn't been a big enough priority.
Great. So just drop the goal. Like, stop hoping and praying that that's going to happen, because it won't. Because there's no real effort with a plan, okay, to help you do that. But would you agree that if you committed, you could do it?
Definitely.
And you could do it way sooner than a year from now?
Yeah, I just came up with that off the top of my head. But pull-ups
Yeah.
are something I work on, and I've gotten past
Yeah.
10, but then I kind of ebb and flow with consistency of working on them. And I think 20 would be a good number that I would feel good about being able to jump up on that bar anytime and pull 20.
My hallucination, knowing pull-ups quite well, is you could do it in 30 days or less.
So we got to be realistic. This is another thing to understand when it comes to goal achieving.
A year from now,
that's way too long. I'm wasting time.
You're wasting time. You're giving yourself an escape route by saying a year from now. So you're reducing the tension. And remember earlier I said sometimes the flow state of achievement starts with tension, with stress. So if you're serious about trying out, the process and the thinking is give yourself a goal that you commit to do 30 days from now, 20 pull-ups. And then today, not tomorrow, today, come up with a plan to get strong enough in the next 30 days so that 20 is easy. So for example, you might say, okay, I'm going to do 10 as soon as we get off of this podcast. And then right after that 10, I'm going to do 3 or 4 more sets until failure each one. I'm going to take a day off. I'm going to repeat it 2 days from now, a day off, repeat it 2 days from now, so that I'm building my muscles that I need to in order to have the strength. Then I'm going to do not only pull-ups, but I'm going to do resistance training where I'm going to hold the pull-up bar and I'm going to just resist on the way down and do it as slowly as I can on the way down. So now I'm going to add some strategies and some specific tactics. And I'm going to spend maybe 5 minutes a day, 7 minutes a day getting stronger. Here's what I guarantee you. You'll be sore for the first week. On week 2, you'll get up to 12, 13, or 14. By week 3, you'll be at 20 already, just doing what I just suggested. Now, you won't do it unless you're committed to achieving at least 20. And you probably will do more than 20 because you become committed. So that's why I'm going to come back to, you're not going to achieve goals that you want to achieve. You achieve goals that you're committed to achieving. And then you remove the obstacles, the stories, the reasons, and the excuses of why you can't.
One thing I want to highlight there. Let's highlight before we move on. Talk about the fact that you said start today. I think that's an important piece because a lot of people tuning in today are going to get inspired by what you're saying and want to change their life and set that intent and feel like they're going to accomplish those goals. But if they don't start today, it's almost like there's a clock that's ticking and motivation is decreasing the minute this podcast ends. So they need to take that inspiration, that motivation, and act on it right away.
Act. So here's something that we know. And think about this, everyone, right? If you say, I want to achieve this goal, and you say, I'm committed, and then you don't take action, even a little bit, what do you think happens to your self-trust?
Down.
You just got screwed because now you've just messed with your self-trust, and now you just messed with your self-esteem because now you don't believe yourself. And if you don't believe yourself, why will next time be any different?
I love this. Let's get deeper into forming that trust in yourself, because this is an important piece where we can easily wear that down by not following through.
Of course. And here's what we know. Tomorrow, usually you've forgotten about the commitments that you've made today for tomorrow. Right now, listen, if it's midnight where you are right now, and let's say you want to do 20 pull-ups, by a month from now. What is one thing you can do to strengthen your bicep muscles and maybe your shoulder muscles after this session? Like, what's one little thing you do? See, any little thing you do activates a neuronal pattern. So anything you do builds self-trust, builds self-confidence, builds self-esteem. Anything you don't do that you can do right now takes away from it.
So you could grab a book and start curling it.
You got it. So let me ask you a question. Does identity play a part in goal achievement?
I would say yes.
Yeah. So who do you, and this is a really fun question. It's powerful. Who do you really believe you are? Like, do you really believe you're an action taker? Do you really trust yourself to follow through to completion? Do you really believe that you have what it takes? Like, radical honesty is what I'm talking about right now. And if the answer is no, I don't, then I'm going to say, okay, great. What's one little thing you can do right now to shift off of that? Can you give yourself a command? Just say, put my arm up and do a little bicep curl in the air, 5 of these. Yeah, you can. I'll share a little story with you that might put some perspective. This many years ago, before my mom passed away, she was in a retirement home, and she was my mother got depressed for years at a time, and she was in a retirement home, and she was sitting in a chair one day when I flew out to Montreal to see her. And she didn't feel like talking, didn't feel like doing anything. And we basically, would look at the TV and maybe the walls together. And I said, hey, Mom, can you do me a favor? And she says, what? I said, lift your arm up, just one time, your right arm and your left arm. She goes, no, I don't want to. Oh, come on, Mom. I'm here from San Diego. I'm here to see you. Just lift it. I don't want to lift my arm. And this went on for 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. You don't want to lift your arm. Can you just take your finger like this? Just one finger, any finger you want. Just do this. She says, fine. So she took her little finger, true story. She was left-handed, so that's why I went to my left hand. She went one time. I said, great. Now, since you did that finger, it was easy, right? Yeah. Can you just move the other finger one time? Yes. The other one. Now you did your left hand, just do it for the right hand. So that day, we got her to just do her hands. I was there for a week. By the end of the week, we had her doing her arms up like this, arms out like that, and legs, moving up in her chair, just moving her legs up and down. 3 months later, because we started that pattern and I got her caregiver to continue it, 3 months later, my mother was downstairs in the gym on the bike for 10 minutes a day. 3 months later, my mom was walking the halls for 10 minutes a day. 3 months later, my mother was able to feed herself again. 3 months. All of this happened with 3 months only because she started with that. So she was depressed. She didn't want to. She didn't feel like it. It was easy not to until she took one little step and did it. So listen, we're not talking about, getting an 8-pack here. We're not talking about making $1 million in the next 7 days. We're not talking about building a business and it being successful, within 7 days. But any goal you want to achieve, what's a small first step? Then what's a small next step? Then what's a small next step after that? Here's what happens. If you build the habits will then build you. Now, that leads me to something that is worthy of discussion because I mentioned it earlier. And Jim Rohn's famous quote, in life, you'll either pay the price of discipline or you'll pay the price of regret. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Now, on the point of discipline, understand this, that every human being is 100% disciplined already to their current dominant patterns and habits. So your habits, your patterns, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are what drive 98% of your behavior. So if you are willing to be radically honest with yourself, ask yourself this question. Are my habits in the arena of, let's say, health or wealth or happiness or whatever, are my habits moving me towards the vision and the goals that I have for my life or not? If the answer is yes, keep going. If the answer is no, when would now be a good time to stop and get on the right track? Because if you don't do it now, you're going to reinforce the very pattern that's moving you away from your goals.
For somebody that has been trashing their self-trust and not following through for years or a lifetime, you talked about your mother there, and it sounds like in a relatively short period of time, she got some serious momentum going. But how long can it take to build that self-trust?
Well, you can start building self-trust right now. One one thing that you follow through on builds self-trust. Think about this, right? Let's say you want to build your bicep muscle. How long does it take to start building your bicep muscle? I could take a weight and I could just do one repetition right now. One repetition right now. Could that help me strengthen my bicep muscle? Of course. If there's enough resistance, up or down, I have just started the process of building my bicep muscle. If I just do this, chances are I'm not going to strengthen it unless I do a million of these. But if I take a little bit of resistance and I move my arm, okay, with a little bit of resistance up and down, I could start right now. So you can start with one positive thought, one positive emotion, one positive behavior. That gets the ball rolling.
I really want to hammer this home. It's so important. And this makes sense, getting the ball rolling and building on that inertia. But I can see how, again, coming back to people tuning in, being inspired, and maybe they've already picked up that book or done some air curls. But then say tomorrow or the next day, since they haven't built that momentum, I think we really need to help them bridge that period of time before those new habits are ingrained, where they can keep that inspiration going during that challenging time before it becomes something in the subconscious and they're doing it automatically.
So all the new research around neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to create new neural connections, says it takes between 66 days and 365 days to develop a new habit. Okay, so all of my students that are in any of our winning game of money or business or weight loss or procrastination or fear programs, they all commit to 100 days of innercising, okay, in order to change the neural pattern. So I tell them, if you're not prepared to commit 100 days, don't even start, because you're setting yourself up for failure. So I would prefer you to commit to 100 days of doing this and just sticking to it, doing it one time versus not doing it at all. Why? Because I know that once you develop the habit will reinforce itself. So commit to 100 days. If you want to start reading more, commit to reading one sentence for 100 days. If you want to get in better shape, commit to 1 minute of exercise for 100 days. If you want to get better, if you want to have a better relationship, commit to 1 moment of loving, caring, kind communication. If you want to commit to, learning how to focus and be more aware, commit to 1 minute of meditation or mindfulness practices. If you want to get better in anything, can you commit to 1 minute for 100 days? And if the answer is no, you are not even remotely committed to getting the benefit that you want. So just let it go. But if you can't commit to a minute, then too bad for you. I mean, unfortunately, nature does not think twice about inflicting capital punishment, right? But it also will reward you beyond your wildest dreams when you learn how to develop some disciplines that are constructive, positive, and empowering. But it will penalize you like you have no idea when your habits are negative, disempowering, and destructive.
For parents out there who are getting this, they're going to start implementing right after this conversation, or they already have. How do they go about instilling this in their kids? Say they have kids in those formative years between, 5 and 13, where they have a lot of influence and they want to help guide their kids to learn a lot of the stuff we're talking about today that's unfortunately not taught in a lot of schools. How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, there's when we're born, we're born into what's known as the imprinting years. Then around 3, 4, 5, we move into the modeling years and the experiential years. And especially in the modeling years, show them, don't tell them. You want them to exercise? Go out for a walk with them. You want them to play a sport? Pick up a baseball or a football or a frisbee or go in the pool with them. So show them the behavior. Repeat what you show them over and over and over and over and over again. Let them know that this is what's important if you want to have your mental health, emotional health. You want to build confidence and certainty. You don't build confidence, certainty by talking about it. You build confidence and certainty by certain behaviors. So show them. Show them, show them, show them. Be the example. Be the example of what's possible. And obviously raise their level of awareness of what's possible. Raise their knowledge, raise their skill, right? How? Participate. The learning doesn't come from reading books. The learning, think about this. How good of a hockey player, since you're from Ontario, how good of a hockey player do you think you'd be, reading about hockey or watching it on TV? How good of a chess player do you think you'll be just reading about chess without playing the game? How good, at the Rubik's Cube do you think you'll be without getting a Rubik's Cube and solving it? How good do you think the intellectual knowledge isn't where the learning happens. The learning happens when you take information, you apply it, and you have the visceral experience that reinforces a neural pattern. And it's also in the errors that are made that's picked up by something called the error detection mechanism, the brain, that then fixes it, that where the learning happens.
You got to get your hands dirty.
Just go, like get into action. The game is won or lost on the field, right? So get into action. So if you're inspired by what I've shared, take a little inspired action. But don't, if somebody says to me, I love this, I'm going to commit to an hour a day. I said, don't. I said, commit to 5 minutes a day. Why? BJ Fogg out of Stanford did a lot of research on something called tiny habits. And if you want to floss your teeth, start by flossing one tooth a day. If you want to start running, just put your running shoes in your bedroom and just put them on just to get the ball rolling. So if you start with the lowest achievable thing to get the ball rolling and you reduce the cognitive tension, of doing it for an hour a day, and competing for attention units and competing against other habits, you risk the chance of rejecting your own ideas. And so what you want to do is reduce it to the ridiculous so you can just commit to 100 days. Don't worry about, anything other than building the habit at first. So how do you build a habit? Repetition. Repetition is how we build habits. Anything that we repeat, our brain, because of the hierarchy of how it manages energy, says that if you're using energy to do this repetitively, I will just automate what you're using energy to do, so it's effortless. Whenever we're learning something new, whether it's a new language, a sport, a new behavior, a new habit, it's energy more, right? And so our brain, if we just have this motivation to get started and we repeat that, and we don't increase the cognitive load on top of everything else that we are using our brain power for, our brain says, okay, I will just automate this for you. You want to be more positive? Talk to yourself positively, listen to positive things, watch positive things. You want to have more positive emotions? Practice being happy, being grateful more. You want to develop positive success habits? What are the behaviors that you can start today? And then reinforce those. So reduce it to the ridiculous. I'm making it as easy as possible to eliminate people from coming up with the stories, reasons, and excuses that hold them back. Now, if you're not prepared to even do that, okay, then you obviously are not committed to achieving more than you've already achieved. I'm okay with that. It's your life, right? It's your decisions, your life, your choices. And it's you that you see in the mirror. It's you that either feels proud of yourself or doesn't. It's you that either has a life filled with purpose and meaning or not. That's your choice. That's what makes us different than horses and pigs. We have choice. So you are at choice. And you can choose to be victorious or you can choose to be a victim. Your choice.
If somebody we love and care about, we can see in our life that they aren't committed, but we want to help them. We can see they're close. How do we know if it's in our right to step in and help get them committed? Or is that ever the case?
It's not in your right. Unless they ask you, it's not in your right. Now, if you do want to do something to motivate them, the high tide raises all the boats. You've heard that before, right? So be the high tide. Be the happy, successful person. Be the committed, disciplined person. Be the caring, loving, kind person so that they see what's possible, okay, for them through you. Like, listen, I've got two sons, 25 and 27. And this has been, one of the hardest things for me is to see, them struggling at times and to see them succeeding and struggling, knowing the answer, but stepping back and waiting for them to ask, okay, for the help. And I'm always saying, hey, if there's anything I can do to help you with anything you want, I'm here. Sometimes they ask, sometimes they don't. And sometimes I have to watch them get a bloody nose and saying, hey, anything you need? Nope, not there to save them.
I hear you. So to summarize a lot of what we talked about today, we have our beliefs, we have our behaviors. We need to assess changes we want to make in either realm. And then
in between your beliefs and your behaviors, you have your emotions, right? So just remember that we have emotions, but we're not our emotions. And emotions do drive behavior. And if you don't understand how to manage your emotions, then behaviors, okay, happen based on circumstances that are happening outside of you. If you don't know how to control, okay, some of your mindset and your emotional control, then it's a skill that you have to learn.
Okay. And when it comes to this, it's all about repetition and starting out small, forming those habits and committing for 100 days.
That's the beginning part. Commit to for 100 days of making progress and building a habit, a constructive, positive, empowering habit.
Let's come back to the stress piece. This has come up a couple times. And I think for a lot of people, when it comes to stress, they're all about, and I'm sure I've been guilty of this too, trying to nullify stress. But what you've talked about earlier is the fact that there is this sweet spot when it comes to stress where it can accentuate what we do. So how do we know if we're in that sweet spot? And if not, how do we modulate it to keep it tame within that realm?
Sure. So I'm going to ask you a question. What is stress?
First thing I would say is just feeling out of control, overwhelmed.
Okay, what's causing you to feel out of control and overwhelmed?
I mean, it can be different things, but we'll just keep it general here and say too much to do.
Okay, stop it.
Okay, but wait. Caveat here too, though. Wait, I'm going to just throw one thing here. Okay. Yeah. I want to throw one thing at you, though. Okay, stop it. But you did talk about stress being a good thing if it is in a certain realm.
Yeah. So let's put a new frame around stress. There is bad stress, as most of us know, but there's also something called eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. Eustress is actually good stress. So when we challenge ourselves, okay, we have good stress. So, but let's understand what activates the stress circuit in our brain. So our brain operates based on networks, 3 core networks: salience, executive, and default mode networks, and then a bunch of different circuits: stress circuit, doubt circuit, motivational circuit, spiritual circuit. So if we're feeling stressed, something's activated that sympathetic nervous system or that circuit. Now, what if we just put a new frame around stress that goes like this? When the current demand exceeds my current capacity, my stress circuit activates.
I like that.
Okay, so when my current demand, the current demand in this moment exceeds my current capacity, stress circuit's activated. So the question is, how do I increase my capacity? Whether it's my mental capacity, my emotional control capacity, having so many things to do capacity. Like, are there things that I can learn in order to increase capacity and reduce the number of things that activate my stress circuit? Of course there are. So the issue is not stress. The issue is you don't know how to be aware of what is activating your stress circuit. And you may not have stress reduction techniques to recalibrate. So stress is not the problem.
I want to talk more about the capacity piece.
All right. And what causes stress in you may not cause stress in me. So it's never the thing, right? It's my brain's interpretation of the thing, but also the capacity that I have, okay, to deal with whether it's the threat, whether it's the 25 different things I need to get done, whether it's the lack of cash flow. It's my ability to deal with the thing that is going on in the current moment. So there are stress reducing techniques that we can use to put a Band-Aid over the trigger. But if you want to eliminate the stress, then you want to increase capacity. So yes, I can meditate, okay? And I can take 10 or 15 minutes and meditate to reduce my stress. But if the same trigger causes the same stress over and over and over again, imagine this. Imagine you're standing on the riverbed, all right, and you're with a good friend talking, and you see this body, okay, coming down the river. Somebody's drowning. You jump in, you get this person out, and you go, "Holy mackerel, are you okay?" And they say, "Yeah," and they go and walk off. And then 5 seconds later, another person comes down, and they're flailing, they're drowning. You go in and you save them. You're getting exhausted, and then one more comes, and another one comes, and another one comes. At what point would you start walking up to see who's throwing all these people in the river? So it's not the children that make us stressed. It's not the lack of money that makes us stressed. Those are effects. So I'm going to come back to the brain's circuits. So we have a motivational circuit, right? We have a behavioral circuit. We have a stress circuit, a doubt circuit, an uncertainty circuit, an anxiety circuit, a panic circuit, all of which are effects. So if I don't want the stress of my job, my marriage, my business, my whatever, my twins, let me focus on increasing my capacity to deal with these types of stressors. So if you're a firefighter, you learn how to go into a burning building where everybody else is running for their lives. If you're an astronaut or a Navy SEAL, you learn to manage with your eyes closed under every type of pressure because you've practiced those scenarios over and over and over again, as a police officer would as well. So when we're talking about stress and overwhelm is an effect of too many competing priorities in the short-term memory part of the brain. That's not an overwhelm because there's too many things to do. It's a prioritization problem that you have, where you're trying to do too many things at the same time, and there's no way to organize what is critical and important versus the trivial many things. So now if we come up with a better process, we don't have overwhelm. But in the absence of a proper process, we have overwhelm, otherwise known as stress. So now we're going back to your skill. So if you want to, have an easier time achieving goals, upgrade your awareness, your knowledge, and your skill. And if you're not doing that every single day, when would now be a good time to start doing that?
Another way of looking at this too, and I know you got to go, but we'll end on this, is how do we increase the brain's capacity? Are there certain nutrients we can take, supplements, a way of eating or living to actually increase the amount of stress the brain can handle?
As far as stress, the brain can handle 100 times more than you think it can, 1,000,000 times more than you think it can. It's processing 400 billion bits of information per second. So number one, you want to make sure you're hydrated. So always have water. For every 2 or 3% dehydration that you're experiencing in your brain, because your brain's made up mostly of water, your brain's 25% less efficient. So hold on. Right? You want to be eating, good, healthy fats as well. Your brain's made up of mostly fat also, right? So you want to eat a lot of really good, healthy fats, omega-3, 6s, and 9s. You want to be eating blueberries. You want to be eating some of the really good brain healthy foods, which you can Google and have a list in 5 minutes. Dr. Uma Pillay. Dr. Uma Pillay has a great book. She's a Harvard psychiatrist. Wonderful friend, has got a great book. I don't remember her book, but look her up for, like killer brain foods. And so there's really good foods for your brain. But as far as stress is concerned, there's probably no better technique than mindfulness training and meditation for reduction of stress. Exercise, also great.
All right, John, you've given us a lot. Really enjoyed the conversation. Going to link up your social media, your website, your books, everything in the show notes. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Jesse, thanks for having me. It was always fun. It was fun a few years ago, fun again today.
Now that you're done my conversation with John, you're going to want to stick around and watch my chat with Jenna here and learn how to completely transform your life.
Because now that I have energy, I look at the last decade of my life and wonder, what could I have accomplished if I had put this thing first? Because energy is required to do big things in your life.